I'm Trey Whitley. I am an actor and a writer who has been doing it for a little while. I'm pretty young. So I think that being one of the oldest art forms, theater has always had its voice in social justice, even though I know that's like contentious for a lot of people, but even if you go back to the early days of it, it was used to make large political statements and start social conversations. Shakespeare is a great example of that, because a lot of his shows were, him pissing people off because they didn't want to, have those sorts of conversations. But he started with a lot of really great, just contentious works. Like The Merchant of Venice is a great example, and it's, touching upon the bigotry against Jewish people. Othello is another really good example of how the Moors were treated, especially in terms of the military. And I think that the great thing about Shakespeare's works in particular is that because of the themes that he touches on, and because social justice is always sort of a topic that we can talk about through art, especially performing arts like theater, they can be used to translate to any time period, which is what we see done with Shakespeare a lot. You take Julius Caesar, for example, nice political drama about seizing power, right, from a unjust ruler. And I mean, a lot of people can relate to that. They were able to relate to it back then. They could relate to it in the 1800s. We can relate to it now. We can and it's probably going to continue to be that way. The same thing with Othello, with the themes of racism, and again, betrayal, political power, love that is, not, supported by everybody because they come from two different places. I think that these things always intersect, and that theater is one of the best vehicles that we see that brings it to a lot of different people in different places. I think one of the most important things to continue to be able to do that is to make sure that we are continuing to bring theater to everyone, making it accessible to people who don't normally get to see theater, people who think it's not for them. And one of the ways that helps people feel that way, that it is for them, is by representation. When you, especially children, you see somebody that looks like them in a play or a movie or any sort of media, right? It really takes an effect on them. They're like, wow, I could be that hero. I could be oh, they're talking about this stuff and they're just like me, especially if they were of a different social class or, a different political group, things like that.
I don't know. I get to do, granted, I'm in Arkansas, so there's not a lot that I get to do, but I get to do a lot of production, as well as costumes and costume design and production, as well as, doing things like voiceovers and front of camera or on stage kind of thing. And when I started, I in myself made the assumption that there are things I couldn't do because I hadn't seen it done by people who look like me or even were my gender. So it has changed tremendously, and it's really been an interesting transition for me as an actor to even be open to those things, simply because of my beliefs that I've grown into. So I have had to change some of my understanding of what's possible for me. Because when I was younger, what I thought was possible, well, how many Black female roles are there? There weren't that many. Or and I'm not a singer and a dancer, so I bought into the whole stereotype of what was possible for me. And now I get to look out there and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many more things that I can do. And the ability to do that and to open my mind to do that. Most of my roles in my illustrious, my career are iconic Black female roles. And it's all trauma, and it's all everything you would ever know, like To Kill a Mockingbird, the black character in that, the black character in this, and the black character. I've gotten to play all those things, and now it's changing. Like even voiceovers I do, it's not I'm auditioning for I need an urban woman. It's I get to audition for any woman, any announcer, and I get to do that, or I get to play. It's just a character name, and I get to come and see what I can bring to it. As with like Shakespeare, luckily it has always had the ability to, it never states, well, sometimes you say this person's from this place and ideally, but with Shakespeare, we've always stepped outside of that box. And now in the culture, we're way more open to different genders, different identities, different colors, different sizes, different abilities, playing whatever role works for, or whatever role. It doesn't even necessarily have to work. We can accommodate a wheelchair. We can accommodate, I don't know, all the different genders. You can even, like when we approach this with Macbeth, I'm Lennox. I'm like, okay, am I Lennox as a woman? Am I Lennox as a man? Am I Lennox as a woman am I gendered in any way? Am I fluid? Oh my gosh, that was like a whole different way of looking at it. And how does her or his identity affect the rest of the story? And then, so how does race play in the play? How does gender play in the play? And then we can address that, or we don't have to. We can be completely blind and say this is a person, and have a person step outside. Just let's see what the script says, and the person is a person, and we don't even identify where they're coming from. There's so many different ways, and now I feel in my evolution as an actor, my mind is open to all the possibilities of who I can be, who I can play, who I even want to play. I had never even considered it. When you asked me, who would you want to play? I was like, oh my God. Usually I approach the script with I just go, who's the black female character? That's what I'm gonna play. But I got the opportunity to even think of the possibilities of, well, I could play anybody in this. So then throughout the entire rehearsal process, I did look at and listen to and think about all the different characters that I saw and thought, oh, I could do that. I could be Malcolm. What the heck? That totally, I don't know, it's wonderful. And I think the younger generation is so lucky now because they can do that without having any kind of barriers or any kind of beliefs put in. Well, I'm sure we all still get those crazy beliefs, but they're a little less likely. Like my daughter has no limitations in her mind about who and what she can play. Whereas I obviously limited myself, just from the institutional racism that I grew up in. I believed that these are my limits and this is what now I'm like, holy cow. And it's very interesting because now I get to explore it all from a different perspective completely.
Hey everybody, here's some advice when performing Shakespeare. Have fun with it. Don't be afraid of the language. Even professionals don't know what they're saying every single line of Shakespeare's work. You may have to ask an adult or a teacher or even look online to see what something means. But when you do that, you know what you're saying that much more, and it'll come across even better to your parents when they're in the audience watching you perform.
Thanks so much for joining us for Exploring Macbeth, Light in the Darkness. If you want more information, find us on our website at arcshakes.com.